One of the first things most of us learn as we learn Excel is how to write formulas. And let's face it, for many of us, that's the focus of our use of Excel. And shortly thereafter, most of us also need to confront the fact that some of the formulas we need are either too complex or we just don't know how to do them. And it's not to say that we always turn toward functions, but a function, which you could describe as a shortcut for a formula, is going to help us in many, many situations to tabulate information in Excel. And to get a handle on what kinds of functions there are and what their capabilities are, the best place to start in Excel is in the ribbon to click the Formulas tab. Now, that by itself doesn't tell us a whole lot, but the function library does point out to us that we've got financial, logical, text, date, and time functions. This can be a little bit intimidating because there are many, many, in fact, over 300 built-in functions in Excel. And let's backtrack a little bit here. There are many times in Excel when we simply write little formulas. For example, difference between sales and expenses, that's going to be our profit. So equal the sales minus the expenses, that's our profit. We can certainly tabulate data in other respects with formulas. We could add up this information here. But even when we're adding only 4 cells, most of us will not simply add the data this way. One of the first things we learn in discussing formulas is that whenever we're adding up data, particularly if it's more than 2 or 3 cells, we invariably turn toward a function called sum. Now there is a button, of course, we can use for that, but we can also type in the name of the function. And in Excel, every time you type the equal sign followed by a single letter, you will get a list of all of those functions that happen to begin with that same letter. If you have used a function before and you're about to type it, now I don't really want to use standardize here, but if I wanted to here, or if I were about to type it, I might just click right here, hit the tab key, and it would pop into place right there. Now I'm not going to use that now, and you can guess by the pop-ups that appear below this, the hints as to what this function refers to, but it is a help here and there when you're using functions and you prefer to type them. We're going to show you in a bit a different way to get to functions, but typing in the name of the function sometimes is fast, it's easy, and if you're familiar with what a function does, there's not much doubt about what you need to enter. Now, going back to the list in the Formulas tab, there will be times when you're just exploring a little bit, you're trying to figure out whether there's a function for this feature or that. And sometimes simply by clicking one of these arrows, for example, the one for math and trig, you're going to discover that, yes, there is a function that you were looking for, and it is in this category. It's been a long time since I've used factorial, and I haven't really used it much in Excel, but there it is. And I see that. That might be handy for the application I'm looking for. And you might see some others. What I'm doing here is almost like browsing, and most of us don't have the time to do that sort of thing. You might occasionally. And keep in mind also that if you're of a mindset that says, gee, I'll never master Excel, there's so much in here, next thing you know, you got to learn how to use inverse hyperbolic cosine. I think most of you won't need that. I don't need it. A lot of you won't either. You're not going to worry about it, I'm sure. But do be aware of this because it is going to make you aware of some functions just by seeing their names. And here and there you are going to recognize that sometimes, even though you didn't check for sure here, if you were looking for a function, now I'm not seeing median here, but I'll bet there's a median in Excel. You can imagine yourself saying that. If you don't see it here, at least in the initial set of categories, check more functions. Perhaps that's a statistical function. And sure enough, you will find median there. And if you're about to use it, no doubt you have some sense of what it's about to do for you. So the question might be from time to time, in addition to what's out there, how can I get help using a function? Now, here's some data set up here over in column N involving information about a loan. You want to borrow $26,000, pay it off over 48 months, 4 years, and it's got 6% interest. And you've heard that there's a way to do this in Excel. Now, if you do know the formula for doing this, more power to you. And by the way, you will have to raise a number to the minus 48th power to get to that. Let's face it, most of us will not use a formula here. We will use a function. And by me telling you that there is a function, you'll be able to find it. Sometimes you'll be guessing. What kind of a function are we talking about here? It's probably a financial function. We can click this. Now, another approach, and more in sync with prior versions of Excel, is to use the FX button. It's on the left side of the formula bar, and it means Insert Function. Sometimes you'll go here. Now, this gives us overlapping capability with some of the buttons we just saw on the Formulas tab. So here's one approach. First of all, when you come to this dialog box, here's the complete list of all functions, alphabetical, the entire list. If you're trying to get to a function that's been a while, but you know its name, for example, maybe it's percentile, might hit the letter P here. Once you click in here, hit the letter P. Well, is it in here? There it is. It's right there. Now, sometimes you'll make a wrong guess. It's not in statistical. Maybe it's in another category. But by choosing all, you'll see everything. Depending on what else might be here, that's all the functions. So you can certainly track down or narrow down a list this way, as well as the way we showed you off the formula bar. At other times, you might just want to type in something here. Maybe you don't know the name of the function we're about to use here. And what might we type here? How about make a loan payment or make a monthly payment? Maybe just type loan payment. Is this going to help? Usually when you do this, what you get is a pared down list. Now, this might be more than I would hope, but it's about 15 or so entries. It so happens that it is PMT. I've used it before. Perhaps you have too. And here's a description of it. And this may be central to the way you work with Excel. You may really need this. This describes the various parameters or arguments in it. If you need more help, and sometimes you have the time, click Help on this function, and the help screen will be context sensitive. You can possibly print this if you wish. You can explore. Sometimes it gives you the option to show more capabilities here. And sometimes these are very helpful, at other times not so helpful. You don't always have the time for that, but don't overlook that capability. But the other feature, and a strong one, that Insert Function gives us, and imagine anytime you're about to use a function that either you have never used or haven't used in a long time, once you've recognized the name of the function you want to use, then click OK, and it will lead us through the steps. So the rate here, and we can either type it or better yet in this case, click on the cell that has the value, 6%. Now you either read the help screen or by deciphering what we're seeing here, you would know that you need to divide by 12 if it's going to be a monthly payment, 4 if it were quarterly. And then as we click in the next tab here, we see the description. It's going to be the term 48, or click the cell in question. I'm not suggesting in any way that PMT is critical to everybody's needs, but this is an example of how the insert function capability does lead us through the steps, helps us figure out what to do. The next selection here is PV, and I think the description leaves something to be desired. Let's face it, what are you doing? This is how much you're borrowing. It's the $26,000. There we go. Here's the answer before we even finish. Click OK, and there's the result. If you wanted that to be displayed as a negative, by the way, you can either change the formula that we actually have here or put a minus in front of that. But let me double click on this for the moment to suggest that the next time you use PMT, you're probably not going to use Insert Function button if it's a few days away from this, or if it starts to become one of those ordinary functions that you use frequently. But the capability of allowing Excel to lead us through the steps to build a function is invaluable. But let's not make the mistake of saying every time you write a function, you need to click FX. The more you become familiar with a function, the less likely you want to use that, and it certainly isn't fast, but it does give us that helping hand. If you're relatively new to functions in Excel, you need those capabilities. And again, we're talking about either using the FX button or as a starting point on the Formulas tab, clicking one of the categories here and then entering a function in this particular way. And it takes us into a dialog box that's similar to, yet not the same as what we saw with Insert Function.